I bet you there are a lot of people who go, can you hear me? I'm just guessing in this community and probably elsewhere. And I'm thinking, Heather, and before I even go there, I'm sorry, I'm Diane Gatsis Havinga. For some of you who may not know me, I'm the host for Village in Motion, which is Thursday, May 16th. We've done the business. But I bet, Heather, that a lot of people ignore the fact that they can't hear, and maybe that's why there's a whole month for speech and hearing. Do you think we need a whole month to mark that?
Well, speech and hearing includes both speech pathologists like myself, but also audiologists. So it is a month full of opportunities for us to educate people about what we do.
So on this campus, and I'm probably putting you on the spot here, are there more residents who have speech issues or more residents with hearing issues?
I think you're going to find that the hearing is probably the greatest contributor to communication problems in this population, because we know that as people get older, that hearing loss happens.
And we're not even talking about our generation that definitely probably has that hearing loss due to all those concerts that we saw, like the Who and others, and being right in front of those speakers. And of course, I'm thinking way back, you know, when people would mow their lawns. I don't remember seeing anyone with headphones until, what, the last 5 years?
So this population, a lot of the changes that we see with men are from being in the war. And so we have some hearing loss accumulated from that. And of course, hearing loss can impact your communication with others. And that's how we can assist through doing oral rehabilitation specifically.
And just in my particular job, since I'm more or less overcharged over the audiovisual here on campus, the biggest complaint that I receive and my team receives is, something's wrong with that sound in that theater, or something's wrong in Hunter's Crossing. I can't hear, or it's fuzzy, or it's, you know, the microphones, get new microphones, Diane, that will solve the problem. And I always say, you know, I go into the various venues on campus, and I try to get to them when there's an event going on, and I listen, and I go, I can hear fine. Okay. I know the sound systems are working properly. Can you get better mics? Of course. But that doesn't mean it's going to solve the sound issue that a particular person may be having. And I always approach it with, it's so subjective. What sounds good to me isn't necessarily going to sound good to you. So how do you figure out if you actually do have that sound issue?
So there's a lot of different ways that you can determine if there is a hearing loss that you're noticing. There's different types of hearing loss. There's hearing loss that just depends on how the sound is traveling through the ear canal itself, and that could be based on earwax or changes in the ear itself. And then of course you've got your sensory neural hearing losses, which is more of a neural component to it with the auditory nerve, which we often see a lot with people as they age. So just kind of understanding that there are different types of hearing loss, making sure that you're communicating with your physician about that. If you have an audiologist, talking with them about that as well. Part of my role as a speech pathologist is to assist with communication supports for those individuals that have hearing loss. And that could be environmental, that could be helping them understand how to do lip reading and speech reading. And I understand we've had a speech reading class here at Green Spring, thanks to Marie Lee, which was wonderful and well received. So there are supports that we can provide to help individuals that are noticing that.
Is that what you mean by environmental, with the lip reading or?
Lighting, rugs, making sure that you've got blinds and curtains that can absorb the noises. When you go to certain restaurants, you may find that It's louder in an environment that doesn't have any type of carpeting. So being attentive to those type of things and seeing what you notice.
And you know, speaking of restaurants, they now, with a lot of restaurant reviews, also give you the noise symbol, or, you know, this is a really loud restaurant, and I do know, at least it used to be, and I think it's kind of starting to change a bit, that's what restaurants wanted. They wanted that high-pitched, loud, vibrant sound, so that when people came in, they thought it was a hopping place, and people would be more prone to eat there. Whereas if I'm going to have dinner out, especially with people I don't necessarily see a lot of times, we're in the reverse. We'll go somewhere where it's quieter and we're going to be able to talk.
Right, right. So Mike's American Grill is probably not the best place to go if you have a hearing loss and you want to have a conversation.
Sure, yeah.
But somewhere else that has more carpeting and in a smaller venue can be better. Definitely.
So what about hearing aids and assistant listening devices? Would that be considered part of the environment too?
That's more the personal, subjective things that you want to do to support your hearing loss. Some individuals are okay with hearing aids. They're comfortable with the idea. They're not going to increase it 100%. That will help, but you're still probably going to have a little bit of a change there because it's different. Hearing devices such as pocket talkers can be very helpful if you want to go a lower cost way to amplify.
So what's a pocket talker?
So a pocket talker is a personal amplification system. So it is either like an earbud system or a headphone that you put on, and you can just adjust the volume to that and it will amplify the sound for you.
So it's kind of like an assistant listening device? Would that be considered an assistant listening device?
Yes.
Okay. And you can get those anywhere. You can get them online or do, I don't know, not grocery store. Where else would you buy it? Like at a Best Buy type?
You used to be able to get them at Radio Shack.
Which we
don't have anymore, but Amazon has those online.
Oh, okay.
There's another website called Maxi Aids that you can also get a lot of age-related supports, and they have a whole section for hearing as well. But they run about $75 to $100 depending on the type that you get. I would recommend the Pocket Talker brand. It does have better clarity.
And you can then go anywhere and either increase the volume or, you know, if it's too loud, take it off, and that will help. Now, does that help you in normal conversations? So it's not dependent on there's a venue and they're amplifying the sound through the T, like a T-coil system.
Exactly.
So it just helps to pick up the sound.
Right. So it's different from an FM system, which is what we have here, where you've got the T-coil access with your hearing aid or with earbuds or whatever you're utilizing. But the nice thing about the Pocket Talker is, let's say that you need to go into Garden Ridge and you don't want to take your hearing aids, but you need amplification. It's a nice backup system to help you with communications, especially in an environment that you're not as familiar with.
Do you recommend that people get their hearing checked regularly?
Absolutely.
Like how often should someone say to the doctor, I haven't had my hearing checked in 5 years?
So if you're someone that knows that they have a hearing loss, then you're probably seeing your audiologist regularly, so she's making adjustments for you. If you're someone that's noticing some challenges with communication, either one-on-one or even in a group setting, that's a good time to talk to your doctor about that, so they can, number one, check the ear and make sure there's no wax buildup, which we often see, but then also having them do a screening for you as well, which is a real easy way to find out if there's a problem.
Can that be done in a doctor's office, or do you have to make a special appointment with an audiologist? You
can do a screening at the doctor's office, and I also do screenings. We just use an otoscope to kind of determine at different frequencies if you're passing or not passing the sound test.
Do you think people are hesitant to find out that they may have a hearing loss?
I think so. I think there's certain individuals that kind of know it's there but aren't really ready to talk about ways to support that, and they just work around it as best they can.
Is there anything you can do? I mean, obviously the aging is there. You can't, at least right now, we can't stop that. But in terms of, you know, are there exercises you can do for your hearing? Is there food? Should you be changing your diet to maintain what you have?
So one thing that I've talked with at the hearing support group and other individuals is oral rehabilitation is a great way to learn about your new hearing aids, especially if you've just gotten those within a month or two, and then also coming to learn about how to listen better. A lot of times what happens is we notice we have a hearing loss, or we've started with new hearing aids, and we have to learn how to kind of process the information again so that we can put away the background noise and focus on what it is we exactly need to hear. And there's actually training programs that we can do for that, that I can assist with. So when you're first starting with a hearing aid, that's a great time to talk with your doctor about maybe coming to see me for oral rehab, so we can get you on the right track sooner than later.
So it's not just, I got my hearing aids, I'm good to go, leave me alone.
There's exercises we can do, ways we can compensate your environment and support you through that process to make it easier for you.
And does a person have to wear them all the time?
It's recommended that they do, because you have to retrain the brain to hearing again. It's gotten used to not hearing certain sounds, and with those hearing aids, they're amplifying those frequencies that you weren't able to hear. So yes, it's better to wear them, and it's better to have them in both ears if it's recommended, so that you're getting the signal consistently through both ears.
Now, we've been talking mainly about hearing, so I want to transition to speech, but before I do, what's the one thing you would want someone to know for hearing?
I think the biggest thing is there are resources to assist you. I'm here as a resource to assist with any type of questions you have related to hearing aids, wanting to work through exercises, assisting with lip reading and speech reading if you'd rather do that on a one-to-one level versus a class. So I'm here as a resource. Utilize me, because I want to help.
So where are you? Is there a cost associated?
It's covered under your Medicare benefit. You just need a physician's order, and I do this through outpatient.
So just go to outpatient, or call the outpatient, which is at Hunter's Crossing right now anyway. I think they're staying there, the lower level. And they also have one at Garden Ridge and Dogwood. So I'm thinking either
I can see people over there too.
And if the person is reluctant, could a friend or a spouse or a significant other contact you?
Absolutely, absolutely. My extension is 604-4378. You can just leave me a message and I'll give you a call back.
So I'm not downplaying hearing, but I think I'm thinking we're about halfway through. So I want to give speech its equal opportunity. So what do you see? Why speech?
Well, speech involves part of language as well. So when we have a speech problem, that could be related to some type of neurological event that's happened. It could be related to Parkinson's disease. It could be related to just any type of spasmodic dysphonia that you might have. There's a lot of components to speech in itself. Speech pathologists work with speech, language, voice, cognition, swallowing. So there's a whole gamut of things that we utilize and do with individuals here, but the speech piece you often see when there's a neurological change.
Like a stroke?
Like a stroke. Lou Gehrig's disease, sometimes we see that. Parkinson's disease as well are the main areas that I work with.
So you mentioned voice. What does that entail? So
voice is different from speech, and that voice relates to what happens here with the vocal cords. Speech relates to what happens with the mouth. So you have to have your voice first before you can even work on the speech production, which is more the resonance and the quality of what comes out. So they're interlinked, but they're different.
So this area here, I'm assuming when we age, as we age, there are issues in terms of, because this is more of a muscle, I'm thinking?
There's lots of muscles.
And so they get lapsed, maybe?
Sometimes they get weak. Sometimes they will get weak. It's not uncommon for people to have some voice changes as they get older. We call that presbylarynx. And the vocal cords will actually bow a little bit.
So it's kind of like your voice gets a little thinner, right?
It is kind of like that, yes. So some people notice a breathiness to their voice, and that can just be an aged change to the vocal cords. And then also with overuse, you can have problems. So let's say that you do a lot of coughing, or you have problems with postnasal drip or reflux, those type of things. We can also have some changes in the vocal cords from that, and that can affect your voice too.
And I'm just gonna go out on the limb, but I bet you smoking also contributes to things like that.
Yes, it can. Anything that will dry the mucous membrane of that area can impact your voice.
So if I was a smoker and say I smoked for 20 years and I stopped, is that going to catch up to me as I continue to age, or have I more or less, you know, I haven't smoked for 20 years, so it's cleared up, or is the damage already there?
I think every individual is different. I haven't worked with a lot of individuals that have come in with voice changes based on smoking, so it's hard for me to answer that directly, but there are changes that will occur when you stop smoking. So good and bad.
Okay, so we talked about speech, we talked about voice, there were 3 others, but
swallowing.
Okay, swallowing. So what's the big deal?
Well, the main thing is for people to understand that you should be able to swallow safely without any problems, unless there again has been a neurological change. So it's not normal. Drinking and eating.
Okay.
Right. So if you're noticing problems with your swallowing, that's based on something that shouldn't be there, because we should be able to eat and drink without any problems unless there's a neurological difference. So if you're coughing when you're eating and drinking, that's not normal. If you're clearing your throat a lot, or if you're having a lot of belching or hiccups at the end of a meal, that's not normal. We want to get you in for an evaluation sooner than later, because if we have something that goes down the wrong way, and that could be saliva, that could be a food particle, something you're drinking, that could possibly cause an aspiration pneumonia, which would not be a good thing. And that's not something that we want to see people go through. So if you are noticing those type of changes, please talk with your physician. I'm here to do evaluations, as you mentioned, in Garden Ridge or at outpatient for those different types of things.
So I'm thinking there are things that we can be doing to help, and I'm you're talking about this and my throat is drying up, to help with keeping our speech and voice strong. Are there exercises we should be doing? Again, is there food that we can be eating or avoiding? I mean, is the hot, spicy stuff, is that something that's not necessarily good for our, she's nodding her head.
Definitely, definitely. I think drinking water is your best bet. Just make sure you drink a lot of fluids. Keep everything moist. Keep it healthy and moist. Spicy foods, as we get older, we have a greater chance of having reflux problems. That will impact your voice. If we get some inflammation and irritation around the vocal cord area, that can impact your voice. So things that are spicy, a lot of citrus, fruits and vegetables, things that...
Any acidity, like the tomatoes, tomato sauces? And
definitely. Preservatives like ascorbic acid, which is a high concentration of your vitamin C, that can impact. So foods in jars, bottles and cans can be problems. Something to think about with preservatives.
So if you had that, you know, I had a lot of friends who's, when they had their, you know, kids, a lot of them had the acid reflux issue as an infant, and, you know, had, you know, took years, things. Would something like that, from that point, catch up to you later, or have, you know, like, are you damaged? Not, that's a terrible word, but is that, you know, has already affected your muscles there and your, I'm not a scientist, I'm sorry, you know, this area, is that gonna you know, be a factor as you age?
Well, thinking of a newborn, their whole swallow process is very different because of the positioning that they have and the development that they have. Their eustachian tubes aren't dropped like ours are, so they have challenges with this whole system because it's all connected from the ear down through the digestive system. So as children get older, you would hope to see an improvement with something like that. A lot of times what happens with adults is we don't get up and go as much. We're sitting more frequently, and that pressure on the stomach can cause problems in the esophagus. So it's important that you keep moving, that you get up and you go places, that you have smaller meals and try not to fill yourself up too quickly. But just be aware when you're starting to feel full or you're starting to hiccup or belch, that's usually an indication that the esophageal phase of the swallow is being impacted, and you probably want to take a little bit of a break. There's 4 phases to the swallow. In that esophageal phase, I see a lot of people nowadays with challenges with the esophageal phase of the swallow.
Do we also have a tendency to lose production of our saliva, and would that affect the speech and the whole process that you've been explaining?
Absolutely, yes. That changes too. Your taste buds change, your salivary glands change. You need those salivary glands to help you chew the food and move the food back. So if you're noticing dry mouth, there are products out there to help with that. The biotin product, which comes in mouthwash.
My dad uses that.
It's a great product. You can do a spray, you can do
and
gums.
They make a great toothpaste. I switched to that because of my dad. It's a great toothpaste, yeah.
So definitely consider that.
So any exercises that we should be doing, or do we need to exercise our mouth? Or what about the tongue?
Communication. Just having communication with others is going to exercise all the muscles of the face to help you with both swallowing and for communication and speech.
So if you're noticing things, now would you also be having issues like pronouncing words correctly, or does it affect if you had a foreign language and you start forgetting that language? Is that all part of this whole aging process? Or
it's interesting when you're talking about foreign languages. What I've noticed is people maybe have increased cognitive change over time. If they had another language that was their primary language, we often see that show up later. So they may switch between their primary language and their English, which can make things a little challenging for communication if you don't know what their primary language is, like if you don't speak Spanish or another language. But yes, if there has been a neurological event that has changed how the muscles are working, that pronunciation is going to be impacted. And of course, we learn our speech in dialect as we grow up. So depending on where we've grown up, we're going to have different movements of the tongue because of the dialect that we've learned. Yeah.
Is there something did we hit all the 5 areas?
Pretty much. Language was the last one. Language meaning more of auditory comprehension and being able to follow directives or reading, those type of things. I work with that too, mainly for people after a stroke.
So again, is there anything we should be doing to help with that?
Just staying active.
Just staying active.
Be active. Do the things you enjoy doing. Communicate. Go to the dining room. Have that socialization at nighttime, lunchtime, whichever time you want to go. But making sure that you're with others during this time so that the brain can be exercised as well as your muscles.
What about music? Does music factor in any of this, all of this? Okay.
Absolutely.
So what does music do for us in terms of hearing and speech?
So I like to use music, especially for those individuals that have problems with speech and language from a stroke, because rhythm can actually help with words. So if we have someone that's having difficulty with communication, what we'll do oftentimes is use music to help connect with the left side of the brain to help the words to come out, and that can be very effective. It also helps with memory. So you can have someone who maybe has a hearing loss or even a memory impairment, put them in front of music that they know from long ago, and you'll find that those words will come out even though they may not be able to communicate well with you at all. So music is a wonderful way to help with communication.
And I would think it would also help with the cognitive issue in terms of keeping your cognitive brain active and alert. Would movies and theater do the same thing?
Again, if it's something you really enjoy, yes. Do the things that you've always enjoyed. Keep active.
So I know I already hit you about what we should do for hearing one thing. So let's hit you with what you want us to know about speech.
So I just want people to know that we do provide services in Garden Ridge, outpatient through Hunters Crossing, and in home care. Ty Gorecki is our main home care speech pathologist, and then there are a team of others that work with me over in Garden Ridge. So we're here as resources. I'm available for any questions you might have along the way.
So I need to maybe stop eating the Indian
in moderation.
In moderation, I can do that. I could still do that. Doesn't that kind of make me clean up the throat too, right?
Yeah, cleans out those nostrils.
Well, and again, the health fair is today, so Heather's going to be there, and I bet you if you have questions for her, go and ask her. Absolutely. And don't be afraid, I think is the one thing. And when your kids or your significant others say, I think you have a hearing issue, I think people say that more about hearing than speech. I'm guessing at that in terms of that sense.
Yes.
But you should listen to them. We should all listen. This has been great, Heather. I always love our yearly get-together and talking about speech and hearing and seeing what's out there. So thank you so much.